Hey everybody, back here with chapter 3 today. I'm gonna try to read a little faster. I just saw the last one was like over half an hour, and if you're watching this, I apologize if it's too slow. Um, Reach out, let me know if I can do better. Um, Real quick, just about Jason Reynolds. Ghost is a great book. It was the first one I read. Actually, I heard about it through an article he put out through The Athletic, where he was talking about a conversation he had with Kobe Bryant. Um, Very powerful stuff. This guy knows this thing, and I actually had the pleasure of meeting him, and he signed this copy for me. I went to a talk of his with Dr. Kendi also, where they this book release stamped um, "Racism, Anti-Racism, and You," a remix of "Stamped from the Beginning," which I also purchased. But yeah, definitely pick these up and give them a read. Um, well, maybe not the big one for all you scholars out there, because this is a big one, and the words are anyway. Let's jump into chapter 3. I'm sorry. Silence. Miles, for real, I'm sorry. More silence. At least you got your bag back, and we got the money too. Those are good things, right? Gank and Miles sat on the B train, finally on their way back to school. Miles turned his phone off. He knew his parents would be calling, and he knew he'd have to lie. And I couldn't get service, so he had to make sure the phone went straight to voicemail. Crazy thing is, I don't even think these shoes are worth this much. Gank flipped through the money, split it, and gave Miles his share. Miles sat next to him, his bag on his lap, his knees sore, his hands bruised, the spider bite scar itching like it always did. He kept his focus straight ahead on the subway ad's slogan: if you see something, say something." Couldn't couldn't look at Gank or even talk to him. He was so mad. Mad at himself mostly. The doors opened and 4 kids got on. 3 were definitely in high school. 1 elementary. Couldn't have been older than 9. "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen," the little one announced. "Y'all know what time it is? It's showtime." "Showtime!" the other boys shouted. Then they began dancing, ticking, waving, popping, locking, getting light. Getting light. They climbed tree they climbed train poles, flipping back, then forward, all while avoiding kicking any rider in the face. Miles didn't even look. Most people didn't. You can always tell a tourist because they stare in amazement at the Showtime boys, as if they were at the circus. But when you live here, you know their tricks, their jokes, the way the talented and adorable young one is the sweet spot to the pockets of fools. When you're late and annoyed and your knuckles are bruised, there's no time for Showtime. Gank nudged Miles as the kids clapped and the music blared from a handheld stereo. Miles stared straight ahead. "If you see something, say something." "Thank you, ladies and gentlemen," the young one said, running up and down the train car with his hat in his hand collecting money. When he got to the end of the car, where Gank and Miles were sitting on a cramped two-seater, Gank took one of the dollars he and Miles had just gotten from the basketball court and put it in a hat. Miles reached over and grabbed all the money left in Gank's hand. "Kid," he called. The little man turned around and Miles held a fistful of cash in the air. The kid's face lit up and beelined back over. "What you—" Gank started, but he couldn't get it out. "Miles, don't!" Miles put his half and the rest of Gank's half in the hat. "Miles!" Then, as if it were nothing, Miles returned to his position, straight ahead. "If you see something, say something." Um, Hi, Mrs. M. This is Gank. Yes, yes, I know, but see, he's in the bathroom. Yeah, he's, I think it was the chicken. I think it messed him up. The train. Tell her about the train, Miles whispered from the other side of their dorm. "And that's why I'm calling, and not Miles, to tell you that we were stuck on the train. I think somebody jumped or something." Yeah, and, and Miles had to poop the whole time. So when we finally got off, I mean, Mrs. M, I swear I've never seen someone run so fast. Gang covered his mouth, stifling the laughter. But we made it to safety. And yes, he made it safely. Uh-huh. Okay. I'll tell him to call you when he's out. Okay. Bye. Gang tapped the screen on his phone to end the call. Boom. That's how you do it. He pretended to drop the cell phone as if you were dropping a microphone. Thanks. Miles stretching his fingers slowly, squeezing air, his knuckles cracking. It's the least I can do, man. It's cool, man. Hey, I know things got a little crazy at the court, but can you at least admit that was fun? Gang stood up, pulled his shirt over his head, then pulled down the white tank top he had on underneath. Miles didn't budge, not even a smirk. Seriously, you mean to tell me you didn't have a good time? Not even when you slammed that last dunk and shattered the glass? Miles Morales, the stress box, who everybody knows at this school, but nobody really knows, the geek with a razor sharp hairline and the clean kicks. Most of the time. You didn't enjoy being the man? Really? Miles sat on his bed, scratching the back of his hand. He had kicked off his shoes and pitted his big toes against each other, one on top of the other. Gank stared expectantly at him, waiting for it, waiting, waiting, until finally a smile slipped onto Miles' face. I knew it! Gank reached for his. Gank cheered after seeing the grin. Relax. You make it seem like dunking a basketball was a day at the amusement park. Maybe it was for you, but I'm the one who had to do all the work. Not to mention, I almost got my bag stolen and had to fight. That ain't fun. Okay, so maybe not the bag almost being stolen and the fighting part, but the rest of it? Gold. Gank, it gold. Dude, seriously, it gold. Okay, fine, Miles sighed. It was gold. It was freaking gold. Gank burst into laughter. Now that that was settled, next order of business. I need to find out who Bruce is. He pulled, he said, pulling his laptop from the bag. Well, mine is getting in the shower. Wash Benji and Bear off me. Miles sidestepped Gank and headed for his closet where he kept his shower caddy. His and Gank's room was a small, tiny box, only a little bigger than Miles' bedroom at his folks' home. There were two twin beds, one on either side, desks in front of the beds, a closet along the back wall, with an added hook for Miles' caddy, and a poster of Rihanna on the front wall that was tacked above a small table with a television on it. Under that table, a mess of wires and video game consoles. Old school. Nintendo, Sega, an Atari that they couldn't even get to work. All controllers maxing out at 4 buttons. They were Miles and Gank's fathers, passed down to offset to their offbeat kids who had a love for 8 and 16-bit games. Games that were all fun and no stress. No shooters, no monsters, nothing for Miles. That was nothing. For Miles, that was real. The games needed a closet of their own. The showers were no better than the rooms. Everyone on the floor shared the big bathroom with toilets on one side, sinks in the middle, and shower stalls on the other side. Tiny cells with slimy walls. Thankfully, the bathroom was empty when Miles got there. They'd gotten back so late, most of the boys, at least the ones who actually took showers, had already come and gone. Miles sat his caddy on one of the sinks, looked at himself in the mirror. No marks on his face, which which was all he really cared about. He knew he had to be careful not to leave evidence of fighting. His knee was a little puffy, but it was fine. But as he put toothpaste on his toothbrush and jammed it into his mouth, Miles couldn't stop thinking about what they said about him. Why they wanted to beat him and Gank up so bad anyway. That they hustled him. Brush, brush, brush. And he had. He knew that he could do things that they couldn't do. That there would be no way they could win. He took advantage of them. Brush, brush, brush. And then he took advantage of he and then after he took advantage of them, he beat them up. And that also wasn't right. They had the right to be mad. Everyone gets mad at hustlers, especially if you're on the victim side of the hustle. And Miles knew hustling was in his veins. You're just like me. Ugh, he thought, splashing water on his face. Whatever. He turned the shower on, his flip-flops slick on the floor from a week's worth of soap scum. Someone's hair was in the drain, gluey from mixing it with a piece of soap at the size of a skipping stone. It was fun, though, Miles thought. Even that part. That's why. Oh, whatever. When Miles got back to the room, Gank was sitting at his desk flipping through a notebook with his laptop frozen on a clip of a comedy series from the 90s. Miles put on a pair of shorts and sat back in his bed to massage his knee. So what I miss? He asked, pointing at Gank's notebook. Since you've been in the shower? Gank joked. I did some breakdancing. Showtime. He rolled the top half of his body. Come on, man. I can't go back to class tomorrow ice cold. Baltimore County calling. I'll send that to voicemail. Come on, man. I can't go back to class tomorrow ice cold. I. Gank turned his chair around. Here's your briefing. I feel like your trusty sidekick. By the way, or your hype man. Gank shook his head. Anyway, so the 2 days you were gone, Gank thought for a second. Oh, one thing is, Mr. Chamberlain is crazy. Uh, yeah. They had just started their unit on the Civil War in fifth period. Everyone figured this was Mr. Chamberlain's favorite subject to teach because he had been talking about it the entire month that school had been in session. I mean, I know you know, but he's like nuts. So he keeps talking about how the Civil War was like this beautiful romantic thing. He talks about it like it's a video game he loves to play. But the weirdest part was on Friday when he finally started talking about stuff like the nitty gritty, like slavery and how the Confederacy didn't want it to end and all that. He was going on about how, depending on how you look at it, slavery was kind of good for the country. Wait, he said that? Miles asked, grabbing one of his web shooters from under his bed. I mean, basically, you know Chamberlain. He does the whole talking statue thing, acting like it's gonna make him seem smarter or whatever, but that's what I took from it. Miles fired the shooter at the TV, a wad of web turning it on. Gank shook his head. So lazy. What? I'm exhausted from saving your butt. Miles joked, shooting a splat at Gank as if it was silly string. Anyway, okay, Chamberlain's tripping as usual, blah blah blah. Anything else? Well, yeah, this right here. Yank struggled to peel the web off his arm. He eventually just quit and held up his nose. And what's that? Yank cleared his throat and then pretended to clear it. He said dramatically, before leaning over and turning the TV off. I am a vault, a safe locked by loyalty, earned by few. Tell me your secrets, whisper them to me behind enemies' backs. I was born this way, a vault, and your secrets will die when I do. Gank looked at Miles, nodding his head. Miles returned the look, one eye slightly closed as if he was concentrating on what Gank just said. What are you talking about, Gank? Did you like that? Um, what are you talking about, Gank? Miles repeated. It's what we've been learning in Miss Blaufus's class since you've been on lockdown. You liked it, right? Gank nodded confidently at Miles' blank face. It's the Sijo, some kind of Korean poetry. Gank slapped his notebook on his lap, excited. This is the poetry of my people. This is my birthright. That's why I'm so good at it. Miles waited for Gank to give in to his usual jokey grin, but he didn't. Miles shot more web at the TV to turn it back on. Gank leaned over and turned it off. And I named this one Miles Morales' Spider-Man. Then the grin came. Not anymore, Miles said, lying back on his bed. As soon as he said it, he immediately felt a heaviness leave his body. A weight lifted. What? I'm done, Miles said. I mean, the powers are acting all weird anyway, and honestly, I can't afford to be Spider Man. You want to get paid to be Spider Man? I mean, you do know that well, you just did. That's not what I mean. I'm not talking about hero for hire or nothing like that. Look, you know how over the last few years I've gotten better at being, I don't even know how to say it. I'll say it. You got better at not being a punk, better at not being a sucker, like a mini Mario. Now you big Mario. Mario with the mushroom and the invincibility star. Miles sat back up. Look, I'm not scared of nobody like I'm scared of my parents. And I don't mean like that. I'm not scared they're going to do something to me. I mean, we come from, Miles couldn't find the words to finish. Think about my dad. He don't have a degree. He didn't graduate from high school. My mother did, but she couldn't afford college. Think about my block. Cyrus Shine, wherever he is these days. Fat Tony, who spends most of his time waiting on a hand-to-hand, sitting on a stoop, talking trash to whoever walks by. Frenchie at the end of the block, who works around a corner at the dollar store. She's cool, but her son, Martel, better make it to the league. And then Neek from across the street went to the army, went to war, fought for the country, got out, and now he's just there. Sometimes you see him pull the curtains back and peek out, but that's about it. Miles got up from his bed, grabbed his backpack. You know what they call me every time I go in the barber shop? Baby Einstein, Smarty Artie, stuff like that. And they smile and give me a hookup on the cuts. They ask me about girls, of course, but they also ask me about my grades. My uncle used to do the same thing. He reached in and pulled out his suit, black and shiny with red webbing. It might sound silly to you. I don't know. Gank leaned forward in his chair. Okay, Miles, aren't you being just a little dramatic? You're doing bad in one class. One class. Let me ask you something, Gank. Miles balled up the uniform. Did you get in here through the lottery? I don't think so. Are you on scholarship? No, Gank said, leaning back, folding his arms across his chest. If for some reason this doesn't work out, do you have another plan? Are there other options for you? Miles, I'm just asking. Gank hesitated, then nodded. Exactly. You and me, we the same in a lot of ways, but this ain't one of them. He opened the closet behind the bed, tossed his suit into the corner before shutting it again. To have time to be a superhero, you gotta have the rest of your life laid out. You can't be out there saving the world when your neighborhood ain't even straight. I just gotta be real about it. Miles flopped back on his bed. His mind was made up. He was done. He knew he was going he was going to do what he knew he needed to do, starting tomorrow. Refocus. But for the rest of the night, he was going to watch as many episodes of American Ninja Warrior as possible. He shot another wad of web at the TV, cutting it on for a third time, while Gang turned back to his desk and started scribbling in his notebook. When he finished, he propped it up on the desk, the words written so small on a page that a normal person wouldn't be able to make them out from across the room. But Miles could. Miles Morales is a dummy. What good is it to quit doing the thing that you do best? Unless quitting is freedom. But what if it's not freedom? What if it's just a smiling what if it's just a smiling family and a prison cell? And though Miles could see the words clearly on the page, he could also see that Gang couldn't understand how he felt. So Miles just shook his head and turned back to the TV, watching another man jump through an obstacle course to prove, for no reason at all, that he too was a little bit more than normal. All right, I'll be right back with chapter 4.